So thank you guys for coming in. My name is Dan. We're going to be talking about securing your website, of course, as you probably know. So who am I? Just in case you haven't noticed, this is me. I am the founder and owner of Breglia, and personally I've been doing this for the past 13 plus years now as a web designer and graphic designer. For those that care about degrees, I hold about a Bachelor of Science at SFU, doing Interactive Arts and Technology, which is a very fancy term for graphic design, web design stuff. Who is Breglia? So this is our logo, and we've been doing web design, graphic design from Yaletown for the last 5+ years now. Over time, we've developed, designed, maintained websites for over 200 different businesses. And one thing we were really proud of is maintaining a 5 out of 5 star rating across all platforms. Customer service is huge for us, and it pays off. So what are we going to do today? First thing we're going to talk about is things you need to watch for in your website, how to handle different things. We're going to go over quite a few scenarios. Know what access is available out there, what kind of backdoors you have. I wish I had a clicker. What is SSL? I'm sure you heard of the term, you've seen it somewhere. We're going to go over scheduling backups and how to do them. Keeping up to date with security standards and different hosting choices that are out there. Okay? And of course, throughout, at the end, we're going to have questions time as well. So if you do have questions, write them down. We'll go through them at the end. So things they need to watch for. This is a quite important topic. And the first thing is, you're going to see some fancy terms. Don't be scared. I'm going to explain everything and dumb it down. SQL. This is just communication with a database, essentially. Some visuals for you guys. So you have a website, you have a database. Okay. Everything you see on the website is the front end. Everything on the back end is your database that communicates with your website. So an SQL is essentially what makes the database communicate with the website and show things to the front user. Now, why is this important? We're going to go over that in a second, but just a few stats. 2014, eBay got hacked. And what does that mean? That 145 million users, their information was leaked out to the hacker. Now, they're not the only one. Home Depot in 2014, same idea. We also had Yahoo that had 500 million users in 2014. And even Sony back when North Korea had their attacks. Now, those are large companies. Obviously, they get sued. They have a lot of issues to deal with. Imagine your company gets sued because of that kind of leak. That's not a good thing. Not a good thing to deal with. So, code injection example, and this is when we talk about SQL, which I just mentioned. When there's an injection, that can come in different forms, and I'm going to show you a very basic example. We're not going to hack any website, obviously for obvious reasons, but I'm going to show you how you can determine if your website is secure or not. So I hope you can see the screen somewhat clear. So this is a website. I randomly pulled it up from Google. It doesn't mean anything of any sort. As you can see, it doesn't matter what the design is like, what they have going on. It's more so about how you can check if your website is secure or not. The very first thing a hacker would do to check is there a backdoor is they're going to go to the top address bar, and I know it's hard to see from far, but essentially there is a PHP ID equals 45. That means that there is some kind of path for us to know that there's items of some sort, we know there's pages of some sort, so we know there's ID numbers to different pages. The first thing we'll do is at the end of the number we'll add an exclamation mark, or sorry, an apostrophe. And that apostrophe, if I click enter, what it's going to do is it's going to load. Very dark. I'm going to try to zoom in as much as I can. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
So this shows up on the website directly. It's a warning sign of some sort. So that means to me as a hacker that I already know they didn't do a proper job of securing this specific site. Now I can see the entire folder structure of their server. Now that doesn't do much to me just yet, but if a hacker wants to get in, this is just enough information for them to start their work. They know there's an open door right there. Okay? Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want anyone to know this entire structure of my server, right? And this took me literally 1 second to find. And all I had to do was add an apostrophe at the end of the domain name, right? So the first thing you gotta do to avoid that is ensure that there's no symbols allowed in the domain name. Okay? So let's go back to the presentation here. So we inject SQL. That can be through any forms as well, not just domains. So if you have a contact form, a login form, any type of form really that you can enter information in, you can put scripts in there. So once they click submit, that script can get into your database, and that's when data leakage happens. So make sure any of your forms, if you talk to a developer or whoever, or maybe you're the developer, make sure that any of those forms take care of those symbols or any scripts that come in. And like we talked about, that can be in this kind of form, very quick. It can be symbols, it can be different statements that they can enter, and that will give them full access to the admin panel. And like we said earlier about domains as well. So the other thing you need to watch for is test for errors and bugs. So just like I did right now with you, that's literally testing. So go to your site and see, do you see any errors come up with that? If you type something weird in the domain name, is anything going to show up? One step that we like to take is have an outside person that you, like a friend or family, play around with the site and see what they will do. Because you'll be surprised, they'll click somewhere and suddenly something happens and you'll never thought of that even. Okay, so that's something to test and make sure you fix. Avoid file uploads. So some of us for sure on our website have a place to upload a file, a document, a picture. So make sure you're aware what kind of files are being uploaded. Make sure you know and restrict different files. So if you have profile pages and you want to upload a photo of themselves, make sure you're restricted to just photo formats. You don't want to upload a zip file or some kind of code that will inject into your site. So over time, your website does accumulate junk and spam. So you want to make sure that somebody from your team always is up on that, cleans it up, just like on your computer when you delete stuff, it's accumulating in a junk folder. Same thing on the website, you want to make sure you clean that up. And your computer malware, so if you have viruses on your computer and you are not even aware of that, they can be transferred to your website too, to your website files. So be very careful which devices you're using, and be super careful to make sure that you don't cross-contaminate with your own computer. So let's talk about what available access you have. So this is a quite important one, especially for those of you that got a website done through a developer. You might not even know what access is still available to the developer. You might not even talk to them for the past 20, 30 years, right? So we have shared passwords. Obviously within the office, people have passwords. So you gotta know who and who's in charge, who has password, just so you're aware that if something happens, you know who to point at. Backend user accounts. So for those of you that had a developer work on your site, we are pretty smart. We can make an account without you even knowing we have an account. That means you need to be able to tell, are you the main administrator account? Is there any other access? Ask your developer, is there any other access to the website? And then legally they're bound to tell you, right? If they do have still access to the website without you knowing, at any point in time they feel like it, they can shut something down. Set up an unauthorized user alerts. There are different ways to set that up, whether it's custom code or plugins. You can set up an alert to let you know that somebody from a new device or new IP logged into your account. IP tracking on login. So for those of you that use computers all the time and internet, you have different IP address. When you log into a website, there's an IP that can be stored, and that means you can track who's been on the site. If you're used to your regular staff members going on, and all of a sudden you see a new one, you know something is off. And the good thing with IP actually is you can block full countries. You can say, for example, I don't want Russia, India, and China to go on my website, and block an entire range of IP addresses, therefore reducing the risk of hacks. Remove the word admin everywhere. So a lot of new websites that'll get launched, they don't even know that admin as a username is not a good idea. Or for a lot of WordPress users, a lot of our clients are using WordPress, so their login to the admin panel is WP-admin. That's the regular term, and everyone knows that one. That means that for me, that's a very last step, very easy step to get to your login platform. Make it hard, make it so they don't know how to get there. Now, any external plugins or any JavaScript folders they're using. So JavaScript is all the animation and code that goes on the website. If you're using any libraries outside of the website, if you're using any special plugins that make things easier for you to work with, make sure you know where they came from. If they're a third-party application, that means that at any point in time, they can inject anything they want into that application itself, and that can cross-contaminate your whole website. So make sure you know what you're dealing with there. And the main last thing is the hosting platform. So whether you're hosting it internally in your office, whether you're hosting it with someone else, for example GoDaddy or HostGator, there's a bunch of them out there, make sure you know who has the access to that account. So if you're the main owner and you're the developer working on the site, chances are you either gave them the hosting account or maybe a cPanel account, and what they did with that information is they created what's called an FTP account. An FTP is a very easy way to have a program on your computer that just logs into the main area of your folders without having to go through your account, right? That you can just bypass all that very quickly. That means that if you don't even know you have an FTP account set up, they can access your site at any point in time. Okay? The other one is you want to make sure the database logins. I'll just shut the door here. The database logins are essentially logins that you'll never even see or don't even know exist. That means that a hacker that gets somehow towards your database now has an access easily because they know the password and username. So you don't want to have that information leak because that can cause a lot of problem legally.
So you are talking only about the database side, not the static.
Static websites don't normally have databases unless you do have something.
It doesn't relate to the static, right?
It does if you have forms. Because the form, we're talking about database, but you can also
access that.
You can access the database through static too. But if you don't have a database, you can change the look of the website. So you can enter codes into a form that will change the look of your site.
Right.
Like you can change the background, you can delete stuff, right? So you don't want to have anyone messing around.
Yes.
Okay. So SSL Certificate. How many of you heard of that term before? You guys heard of that? And do you guys have any idea what that is?
It's just secure your site, right?
It's a what, sorry?
It's just a certificate which actually changes from HTTP to HTTPS, right?
That's on the right path. Yes, it is. So what is SSL? Just like you said, it's the HTTPS. So if you've seen on the domain at the top, it's like nice lock icon. It tells you that it's secure. Now, why do we need that? Well, a few things. First of all, it encrypts your data. So it adds a layer of protection to your whole site. Number two, it confirms your website's identity. So it tells users in Google and search engines who is this website and why is it a trusted website. It adds a trust association. So if people come to your site and you're a big corporate company and they don't see that, subconsciously they're like, well, it's not a safe site, I don't know how I feel about this. They're about to make a purchase. If they want to put their Visa information in and they don't see a trusted website, they might not feel comfortable doing it anymore. Okay. Now, bottom line is search engines required. Back 2017, they made it mandatory. Matter of fact, they added a little thing on Chrome. If you notice here, it says not secure. If your website doesn't have HTTPS in it, it's going to say not secured. Now, I don't know about you, but when I see not secured, I don't care what the case is, I don't feel comfortable with it. And another bottom line is just professional to have. It's long term, it's not expensive. Might as well set it up and have it running. Backups. So we all know about backups, we all understand what backups are, but we don't know how to do them or why should we do them. So how do we do them and how often? Well, first of all, if you remember, we talked about the hosting platform, we talked about how to set up the logins for your developer or yourself. This is what you need to know, how to locate your own cPanel. If you're dealing with a website, cPanel is the first thing you'll have as an access from your own account. And then from there, generally you're going to go to the file manager and download all the files on there. So right click on all the files, zip it all together and download it. Full database download. So again, if you're not sure where to find a database, make sure you ask the developer that worked with you, where can I get the database copy? That way, down the road, if something does happen, you can delete the old one, put the backup you have, and you're back normal order. I personally recommend doing it minimum once per month, unless you have a big turnaround of things moving. But once a month, even if you don't really update anything, if you do updates on plugins or little things, it's definitely recommended. But more so important is if you do decide to do any updates or any changes, do a backup right before. Because you'll be surprised how many times things go wrong and then all of a sudden you don't know how to fix it. So that backup will really save you a lot of time and money. And that leads me to updates actually. So how do you update the backend? Okay, so depending on what kind of site you have, if you have a CMS, which is a content management system, such as WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, whichever one you're using, If you have a static website, it might be a different type of updates. We're going to go over in a sec. But for those types of CMS websites, you want to make sure that the plugin and the updates are all up to date. If you can see the image over here, usually when you don't touch anything, this is what it will kind of look like. It will be a bunch of yellow warning messages saying you have an update. Now, the reason you want to keep updating those is because you have all those third-party plugins that you've installed that require those updates to improve your security. They've seen some bugs or glitches in their own code that they want to fix. That means that just like your computer that has updates all the time, that's because they find some kind of backdoor they want to close them. Okay? That's just the quickest way to explain that portion, let alone if the plugin itself improves as well. But I've seen over time, 5 years now, the clients sometimes don't touch it from 5 years ago. And then all of a sudden the website starts to malfunction, something's not working right, and that's because they haven't updated anything. So make sure that's always up to date. Remove any old or unused files. So that speaks for itself, just like junk that accumulates and slows down the site on its own. If you have a lot of files, it's just not doing any benefit to you. Just like you do on your computer and you do an antivirus scan, make sure you do a full site scan. There's plugins out there for that, there is websites out there for that. Just you can type in website full scan on Google and you'll find a ton of different links that will do it. Now this is, if you really want to push to the extreme level and you want to make sure you're super secure, there's something that's called the WAF, the Web Application Firewall, and that's for extra security. Really recommended. It keeps monitoring what's going on. It even sends you alerts if they notice anything happening. And this is even an extra step too if you want to consider a second verification for login. So that means that when you come to your site, you type in your login, and right before you actually get to your panel, it'll ask you for a second verification, whether it's through a phone application or send you a text message with a number, and then you type that in and then log in. It's a randomly generated number, meaning that if a hacker gets a hand of your username and password, they'll need that random generated number to log in, which only you will get. Server choice. This is a big topic. I believe that a lot of people don't understand the difference. Some people get the very cheap one just to have the website up. Some people get a little more expensive just because they think it's better, but they have no idea why. So I want to explain the difference. There is something that's called a shared hosting environment and a dedicated hosting environment. Now, the words make sense, but for hosting, you're really being pooled, just like in the diagram there, you're just being pooled with a bunch of other people. So you have one server, one big server that has a bunch of you in there. Okay, so that means if one of the guys is a little bit bigger and takes a lot more resources, it makes the whole bucket heavier. So like the way I can explain this, if you're carrying a bucket of water and everyone puts their own cup in there, it becomes heavier. Whereas if you have your own, it's a lot lighter, it's just your website, but it's the same size bucket. Okay? Cross-contamination is a lot riskier on that one, because if the water, if you got a little vodka in that bucket, all of a sudden it doesn't taste good anymore, or for some people it might. But in this case, it's just you there. So it's very reduced risk of getting any type of any kind of malware. It also increases the chance of downtime if you're on a shared platform, because if you got cross-contaminated, if the code went to another folder, now your website is down, right? Whereas on this one, obviously the opposite, low chance of that. So more info, guys. Website maintenance. We obviously take care of those things. We have a list of what we do. This is the general list that we go through that we believe is important. You guys can find that same list on our website as well if needed. This is kind of a checklist that we always go through beginning to end to make sure that websites are secure. Now, of course, this is not everything that we just discussed here. You can find all our articles on there. We talked about a lot of those topics as well. We have a ton of articles recently too, because it's more and more important recently. It's always been important, but we see more search engines talk about this. We see more websites getting issues and calling us for help with their websites. So if you're curious, obviously take a look in there. Questions? I think I'm doing perfectly fine.
Question about the, you were just talking about the shared server versus dedicated.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the expense difference between that, and do you have clients that you would have on a shared server and then some?
Sure. So let's put it this way. If you have a very static website that you know, very minimal, you just want it up and running, maybe you have a yoga studio that you're just starting out, then shared is probably a good fit for you. You don't have a lot of expenses, you don't want to have a lot of expenses, that's probably a good fit. If you're running a big corporate website that has logins, that has users, maybe purchases online done, I would say dedicated is probably a smarter way, because on a shared platform, people that don't know, just they come in and they have their big e-commerce sites on there, they have lots of traffic going on, all of a sudden it slows down their site obviously, but then other sites that are similar, they're slowing down too now. That means that all those sites combined are all slow together. Whereas on a dedicated one, on the other hand, it's just you. So if you have a lot of users or less users, it's not going to affect anyone else but you. Price-wise, you're looking at maybe multiples of 3 or 4. So if it's $5 here, times it by 3 for the dedicated. Depending on what you get, of course, it can be more, right? I would say any minimal dedicated server would be a good start rather than shared. Matter of fact, and the reason people go to the shared is because it's a lot cheaper, right? So if you're serious about the business, if you see it growing and so on, start with dedicated right away and upgrade as you need. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Any other questions, guys?
Could you expand a bit on when you talked about accumulating junk and spam files? Do you mean on the website?
On the website, yes. So as you go through the website, you start uploading photos, you see comments coming in maybe. A lot of spam actually from comments too. So that means that over time you want to start deleting those things because they do take space. Maybe not a lot, but they do take space. Plugins as well. Sometimes there's unnecessary plugins that you're not even using anymore, right? You might have thought you had it back in the day when you installed it, but not anymore. So just get rid of them. They're just taking space. It's an open door for hackers if they need to. Okay? Let me see if there's any questions in here. Do you guys have any questions?
There's one. Is it possible to, going from static to like dynamic website?
Is it possible to go from static to dynamic website? Yeah, of course.
It's a quicker way of doing it,
There's no quick of doing it. There's definitely a switch. Are you asking for so you can update stuff? Yeah.
Some of the site we have is mostly on the static one.
Okay.
We just have to switch to the dynamic. So
Yeah.
how is the best way to do it?
I would recommend WordPress to switch from a static to a WordPress site. It's
Yeah.
probably the best way to go about it because it's the most popular, the most supported
Yes.
one out there. Most people understand how to use the backend even with no code skills.
Yes.
It's fairly easy to figure out and the learning curve is not too crazy.
Right.
But once you do switch over, to answer you how hard it is, it's work.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's hard because I do it every day.
Yes.
Right. Hopefully that answered it. Cost of a website, Steve is asking. A little bit out of topic here, but depends who you go to. I mean, our rates are a little bit higher than most, but depends. Any other questions? There's a lot of topics we covered here. Let me see what we get. Yeah, well, this is my information, guys. If you do have any questions or concerns. Cool. Short, sweet, to the point. That's it. This is us.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you guys all for joining in.